But while South Africans are already tightening their belts, the latest increase is expected to hit consumers even harder. The SA Reserve Bank has just made things a little bit more difficult by raising interest rates by an additional 50 basis points. eNCA'S Nqobile Madlala is in Inchanga speaking to local farmers there. And Nqobile, once again, of course, definitely residents, all business owners as well as local farmers feeling the pain when it comes to those increased interest rates, right?
Definitely, Dumela. We heard from Marvin also talking about the fact that we'll see the price of our food basket also going up. And that basically means also the debt that's being serviced by a lot of businesses will also be going up, especially when it comes to the work that they need to do to ensure that we also have food as farmers. So today, now I'm joined in by one of the farmers in here to speak to us about such. Andile, we do know that you do mixed farming. Tell us a bit about how this is going to affect us in the pocket if the repo rate has gone up.
Thank you, Nqobile. Farming as a business is basically a production system. So you can imagine that if you look at it from a perspective of farming being a business, we are also going to try and maximize on our output and our production in terms of wanting to reap rewards from profits. And because we're in a system, we obviously, for a business to sort of survive and to also potentially become successful, you need to leverage some kind of finance or some kind of borrowing to ensure that you're able to grow your business, which is then obviously where the problem starts, because once the cost of getting inputs and equipment and infrastructure becomes too expensive to be able to pay back loans that you may have, then obviously that's going to come from the production and the output, which will then make it difficult once again for people who are, I'd say, low income earners, who are going to find it difficult to be able to try and keep up with their basic needs from month to month.
And as a farmer, we understand that you also, sell meat in terms of the fact that you also got cows that you do farm. What does this mean for the cost of meat then for someone who's buying?
I can imagine that, with the cost of feed going up, potentially we are going to see the meat price obviously going up in terms of meat. Yeah.
And how does that work then in terms of you farming? How does that mean that it's going to be even more expensive to buy cattle?
Funny enough, currently what I have been experiencing in auctions is the fact that the price of live cattle hasn't been as high as we've experienced in the past. Obviously maybe it's just my limited understanding of how the economy works, but I can foresee that meat as a product potentially will obviously increase, because once the cattle are on the farm and they've been fed, it's going to be quite expensive for us to feed cattle, and in turn it's going to be very expensive to produce meat.
And in terms of servicing the debt as well, because like you're saying, essentially farming is a business and you have machinery that you need to also invest in. What does this mean then for you to keep the farm running?
Currently, I think the whole point is to make, borrowing unattractive. So, we are going to try, obviously, to make do with what we have. But again, I always say it's a bit of an issue when it comes to farming, because the success of your business is dependent on the infrastructure you have. If you have better infrastructure, you're able to perform efficiently. If you perform efficiently, you keep the cost of production low. Without us being able to, leverage finance to enhance our businesses, then it's going to obviously mean we're either going to maintain what we're currently working on, which is still in turn going to be expensive due to the rise in inputs, and it's going to be difficult to obviously foresee growth in the business. It'll be more about maintenance of what you already are producing than growing bigger than what you are now.
And lastly, I do understand that also as a business means you have to employ people and you have to pay those people. And with the expense that you are talking about at this point, what does that mean then for securing jobs in terms of in the farming?
Sure. I think also that's going to be a bit of a difficult thing, because, like you say, one of the larger costs in any business, I'm sure, and especially in farming, is the cost of employing skilled staff to actually be able to work on the farm. To be quite honest, I really don't know what that looks like for us as farmers at the moment, but we'd like to hope and just think that we are able to sort of keep and maintain our staff for as long as we possibly can.
And you have students already that you're training?
Yes, we do have students currently that we have on training. They're on a learnership. I just think that obviously that's a blessing from a perspective that the Department of Agriculture and Land Reform has allowed the opportunity for that. So that's sort of like some kind of support, I suppose, from the government side, especially for the students. And in turn, it is a benefit for the farm.
All right. Thank you very much for speaking to us. That is Andile Nqobile. He is a farmer, and of course, as you can hear there, it's becoming difficult for everyone. The input is also becoming more expensive, and that practically means that employment and all sort of things are at risk at this point.
Colleague, I don't know if it's just you or me, but I could also hear the cows mooing at the back, definitely agreeing with all that Andile has to say just in terms of what's going on. But you could hear that they are doing all they can, not only to, of course, make profit as a farm, but to create jobs, to ensure that there are more skills development, when it comes to the agricultural sector growing and booming. So all our thanks to our guest and to you, of course, colleague, for making sure that we stay abreast with all that's happening out in KwaZulu-Natal, just in terms of how farmers too, local farmers at that, are impacted by all these interest rate hikes.